Next one, Senator Juf.
Present.
Next one, Senator Oviedo. Senator Oviedo.
Justin, you there? Don't see on the. Put absent for now.
Next, Senator Inoko.
Put absent on that one, for now.
Next one, Senator Wilkin. Senator
Present.
Wilkin. Senators from regional and metro campuses. Portage Senator Crowder. Senator Crowder.
I didn't hear anything from her, but let's just keep it absent for now and keep an eye out whether when she turns up.
Reedsburg Senator Stacy Browner. She is present.
She's present. Mhm.
Next, Watertown Senate. Next one, Fort Atkinson Senator Dirks.
Present.
Next one, Goodman South Senator Bissonnet. Senator Bissonnet.
We'll put her absent for now. So do we have quorum? So of the available members, that'd be 9.
I think so.
Okay.
6, 4.
Perfect. We do have quorum. Okay. Now moving on to the agenda, approval of the previous meeting minutes. Did everyone get a copy of get a chance to review the copy of the previous meeting minutes? And we want to put it on screen. Do you have that up on screen?
I can get it 1 second, please.
Yeah, we'll just quick go through it. Pretty detailed. I think the big thing to pay attention to is the legislation vote that we had. If that all looks official to you. We'll just take a quick minute to look over that. We'll just slowly scroll through.
I'll stop here for a moment.
I think that page is pretty good.
Sorry.
No worries. Okay. Yep, here's where we start getting some real details on the second page there. So no framing ceremony. Just general recap of what was going on during our conversation with the resolution. Well, some committee stuff. Scroll down. Yeah, just kind of keep scrolling general pace, especially during this part where there's a lot of no reports. Thank you, by the way. This is where the meat of the discussion happened. Just quickly scroll through. No one seems to have any issues with anything listed in the notes. Okay, well, with that, we could entertain a motion to approve the previous meeting minutes. see a hand raised from Senator Dirks, second by Senator Karstens. It's now been properly moved and seconded. Vote by unanimous approval. If no one opposes, this motion passed. The meeting minutes will pass. Sorry. Anyways, hearing no opposition in 3, 2, 1. Meeting minutes passed. Reading approval of meeting agenda. That one's much shorter. We can just go through that quick. If you pull it up on screen, please, Cole. Okay, and you'll see much of it standard. Only thing that's different on this page is really the public comments. Scrolling down to the next page, you'll see in our new business, there's 4 items listed as well as some updated announcements. Anyone have any issues with that, or are we ready to approve? Would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
To approve.
Okay, motion to approve by Senator Karstens, second by VP Hashmi. It's now been properly moved and seconded. Vote by unanimous approval if no one opposes. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Agenda approved. We can now move on to the public comments. City of Madison Bartillon Shelter Listening Sessions. Linette Rhodes from Community Development Supervisor, Jim O'Keefe, the Community Development Director, and Karla Themes, Porchlight Executive Director. Floor is yours.
All right. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for inviting us. It is actually just going to be me. I'm Linette Rhodes, the Community Development Manager for the City of Madison. I've been one of the project leads that oversees actually the affordable housing policies for the city. So that includes all of our homeless services, like the shelter that we're going to be talking about today, also the development of multifamily housing and homeownership opportunities as well. I've invited Karla Tennis. I'm just going to let her introduce herself right now, and then we will go into a presentation.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for having us here today. As Linette said, I'm Karla Tennis. I'm the Executive Director for Porchlight, and Porchlight is the largest provider of affordable housing and services to homeless folks here in Dane County, and we're excited to share a little bit more about the Bartillon shelter that'll be coming up in a couple years and how we can partner with Madison College.
All right. Now, am I showing my screen?
Yes, we see it.
Okay, great. I always love it when it's not my email popping up on the screen. So what I'm going to do is just kind of do an overview of what the project has been in our development process, some of the community engagement that we have already done. I am going to show some of our already approved design plans, and then I'm going to hand it off to Karla so she can talk a little bit more about Porchlight and the services that they provide for our community. So first, just to give you a little background about our homeless shelters. So here in Dane County, we have a men's shelter that has been operated by Porchlight for the last 35 years. Then we have a single women's shelter and a family shelter. Single women's shelter and the family shelter are operated primarily by the Salvation Army. The YWCA does have a few rooms for family shelter, but overall, our emergency family shelter is operated by Salvation Army. During the pandemic, we realized that we really needed to address some of the spaces that our shelters were operating out of. For the family shelter, the city of Madison purchased a nursing home that had been closed, and we relocated the family shelter to Milwaukee Street. And then the single women are still being served on the East Washington location of the Salvation Army. For the men's shelter, they were previously operating out of the basement of 3 downtown churches. So our public health officials and a lot of the city and county leadership said, with everything that was happening once the pandemic started in 2020, we realized quickly that that would not be an adequate place for people to safely, provide their own sheltering during that time. So the city, realizing at that time that the community centers were going to be shut down with the stay-at-home orders, first relocated the shelters from those downtown churches to the Warner Park Community Center on the north side. We reconverted the gym to put cots in that were about 6 feet apart, offered a lot of opportunities also for the conference rooms to be used at that community center. Things started to open back up. Children needed spaces to go. So then we pivoted, realizing that that community center needed to be reopened to the public. At that time, it was just a good opportunity that our fleet building, it's the building where our buses and our city vehicles get serviced, actually was opening a new building, which allowed us the opportunity to move into a city-owned building on the corner of Johnson and First Street, which was our second temporary facility. So we closed down Warner Park and moved into the First Street location. As it happens, the city is very busy developing lots of different opportunities in our community. So that First Street location eventually did get full approval to start construction of Madison's public market. So once again, we were asked to find a new location. And so at that time, we were having multiple conversations of not just where are we going to put the next temporary shelter, but also we need a permanent, purpose-built shelter in our community. Many of our shelters, even the Salvation Army shelter, have been kind of repurposed schools, again, basements of churches, space that has never been designed to be actual shelter space. So we did a lot of research, talked to a lot of different communities, a lot of different states, in looking at what was the kind of next steps and best steps for our community. And we were then looking for 2 sites. We wanted to make sure that we got out of First Street to build another temporary shelter, but we were on a mission then to build the purpose-built shelter. As we were looking, it took us a very long time because we were looking for something that was, had adequate transportation. We were looking for the adequate square footage, and it had to be right in the neighborhood. It had to be a right fit for what was surrounding in that neighborhood as well. So we got permission actually in October of 2021 to buy the Bartillon site. We bought Bartillon and we bought Zier Road, which is where the temporary shelter that Porchlight is operating for us on the east side is currently located. At the time when we bought the Bartillon site, the city has a fund that we call land banking. We buy sites that are available so that we are kind of working along with the private market of seeing, making sure we have that it could eventually become housing, an economic development incubator. For Bartillon, it was bought with land banking, and a few months later, after looking at various different options, in April of 2022, that is when our Common Council gave us the green light that said, okay, you guys bought this. We've evaluated all of our options that we have in the community. We really do feel like this is the best parcel to move forward on this project. Once we got that green light, the next things that we had to do was start doing requests for proposals, requests for bids to see who our partners were going to be in this adventure. And I will say it has been quite an adventure. So one, while it is a city development, we do hire outside architects and engineering firms to help us with the process. So a local-based Dementia 4 was selected to be our architect/engineering firm as we move forward with that design process. When the city is looking for operators for our facilities, we also do requests for proposals of who can potentially operate that space. So we did that, and Porchlight submitted an application. Again, they have been running the shelter for over 35 years. So we felt very confident in the application that came in and them answering our questions. So we officially, with our Common Council, were able to move forward with saying that Porchlight would be our partner, continuing in this new shelter as well. So from October of 2022, when we got those kind of official go-aheads from our Common Council, all the way until December of 2023, a lot of what we worked on was that community engagement, feedback, going out and doing meetings very similar like to this with the neighborhood of just explaining the project, explaining who we were, explaining who Porchlight was. So earlier, well, a few months ago in the end of December of 2023, that is when we officially got our design plans approved by Common Council and the Board of Public Works and so forth. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what was happening from that October 2022 until December. Because that was a lot of work in the sphere of the public engagement. So we really wanted to focus on 3 groups as we were doing our community engagement. What's most important to us is people with lived experience who were currently using the shelter or have used the shelter. It is one thing for me to sit in my office at times and kind of evaluate how performances are happening throughout the city services. But it is a different thing to hear from people who are actually utilizing those space and those services. We also wanted to talk to our service providers. What was the impacts of the shelter, and if we expand the shelter, the impacts of those service providers as well. And the third one was the neighborhood. So we actually hired city staff in my unit that focused just on that community engagement piece of going door to door at times, talking with the surrounding businesses and going into the residential area. We often hear from people that, as government is moving forward with projects, that the neighborhood is not as informed as they should be. So we wanted to put special emphasis on making sure we had that relationship with the neighborhood. So typical way that the government does our process of getting feedback is through a survey process. So we made sure as my staff were going door to door, as we were going to community events, food pantries, the East Madison, East Side Community Center, that we had flyers and that had QR codes, and that we had actual surveys that we could sit down and go over them with individuals. And they asked a lot of questions, and I'll kind of get into the answers to those surveys so that you can see kind of the questions that we were asking. And then besides the surveys, there was a lot of meetings and one-on-one opportunities as well. So through our architects, we had a firm actually out of Denver that helped us with kind of structuring how we were asking questions and how we were getting feedback. So they went to our current shelter opportunities and really spent a lot of time with individuals utilizing those. And they created what we call a trauma-informed design report. So that report, which I can send out this PowerPoint, and the report is linked to our project website, was very informative then for those next steps as we actually built the design of the building to think about in that space. There was overall kind of 3 themes that we were asking when we were going through and doing the surveys and the in-person, and that was the safety of the building and the people using the building, both shelter guests and staff, and then the kind of services that were needed in the shelter. And then the final kind of questions we asked were about design. So again, safety is extremely important to us. And so we wanted to make sure that people who utilize the shelter feel safe. Prior to the pandemic, our max number that Porchlight ever served in the downtown churches was about 165 individuals. And we recognized in our community that we had a lot of individuals that were unsheltered, sleeping in parks, sleeping downtown, and so forth. And so as we expanded and started building the temporary shelters, we were really trying to look at what were those barriers of why people weren't using the shelters previously. So those were kind of some of those leading questions of the shelter users' concerns. One of the things that, people kind of address was drinking and using drugs. Now, while people cannot drink or use drugs in the shelter, we recognize there might be a need for space in the shelter that is isolated from the general area for people who are coming in with maybe experiencing those issues, and so they don't disturb other people. So just thinking about that from the feedback of shelter users not wanting to use this space because they feel they're being disrupted by others. The other big kind of common theme that you'll see a lot in the recommendations is about storage and belongings. Again, when they were just in the basement, there weren't a lot of spaces for individuals to lock up their individual stuff. And so that is a big barrier why individuals do not want to use our shelter system sometimes, as their only possessions are on their back. And so really thinking about how we can make sure people are feeling safe to leave their stuff or bring their stuff into the shelter with them. And then just overall, individuals with potential mental health issues. So just general, making sure that there's security or staff around that can de-escalate things within the shelter. So just kind of, again, going on those top things of kind of what the shelter users wanted, you'll see that storage and possessions. Privacy in sleeping areas was a big conversation that we had a lot. Zaire right now is the former Savers/Gander Mountain that is over by Easttown Mall. If anyone were to walk in there, you would just see kind of a sea of cots. There is about 250 cots just lined up. That means that, if there is, loud noises and things happening, there isn't really a lot of places where people can isolate and be on their own. And then again, a common theme was the security with staff. Keep going the wrong way. I'll get the hang of that. In the feedback we got from the neighborhood, one of the things that we heard is making sure that there was a connection with the shelter and the neighborhood. So we plan, as we are finishing up our designs and we start the construction process, and we get into actually operating the shelter, we most likely will be creating some type of monthly or quarterly kind of check-in meeting with the community to hear from them directly about concerns and making sure that there is that connection. We have found in many of the city projects, when someone knows who to call when they have those concerns or to talk through things, it helps ease a lot of the worry and the sense that we're not in this together. And I think that is a big theme that we had as we went through the public information meetings, is homelessness in our community really is a community issue. This is not something that the city or the county or Porchlight alone is going to be able to solve. So we do need the neighborhood to be supporting us through this endeavor as well. But we also heard about some design plans of like increased lightings and cameras that we'll be paying attention to as well as we develop. As we are always going into neighborhoods and we're sensitive to neighborhoods in any type of development, whether it be housing or shelter, we do want to know how people are feeling. So we asked individuals that use the shelter, though, do they think that they would feel accepted in the community wherever we put the shelter? And overwhelmingly, most people said that they had concerns because they didn't feel that they would be accepted. And I highlight that because we did face a lot of opposition when we went into some of our neighborhood meetings about fear from the neighborhood of the individuals that were using this space. And I just want to point out that individuals using this space also have a lot of fear sometimes about how they are going to be accepted or portrayed in our community as well. So now going into services, we have kind of branded and talked about this shelter as making sure it is a housing focused shelter. And what we mean by that is we believe in making homelessness rare, brief, and non-reoccurring. And so making sure that we have that adequate case management and system set up, that as someone is coming into homelessness, they have the right connections to help them with that next step of filling out applications for housing, figuring out why they're getting denied for housing, helping them connect to potentially income opportunities to make them better qualified for getting approved for housing. So those are things that individuals at the shelter also said were high needs that they would like to see in the new space as well. And then also just basic services like behavioral and mental health services and case management. Case management really is just having someone help you navigate what are your needs right now in the community. Sometimes someone isn't ready to, just go right in and get a job, but they need to navigate other skills first, and they have that case manager just be supporting them. We really talk a lot about transportation, making sure people have access to our bus systems. I'm sure you've all seen the wonderful construction happening around Madison right now as our bus rapid transit stops are being created. So one of the reasons we selected this site is it is near one of the BRT stops off of East Washington. So as we continue to talk about services, we're engaged with multiple different partners within the city of Madison, some that Karla and Porchlight are currently working with at the Zaire site, some that are interested in moving into the new site. So lots of opportunities for us to discuss the service needs. And the service needs are extremely important because we are going into a very tough budget season. And as we have expanded from, again, the basement of churches to the city creating more temporary shelters and expanding the capacity of the shelters, that means the budget has expanded. So before the pandemic, the max that the budget was about 600,000 that was being used to utilize. And I will admit, the city contributed $0 to that budget. So as we now are in the Zaire site, and again, more people utilizing the shelter because our unsheltered number, people sleeping in those uninhabitable places on the street is actually going down, meaning more people want to use this shelter opportunity. More staffing needs to be there, again, for that safety of the individuals accessing the space. But then also we have increased opportunities, like the opportunities for people to shower at the shelter. We are bringing food into the shelter so people have, a meal. These have all risen the costs quite a lot of operating. It's a conversation, again, we're going to have a lot of between the city and the county and potentially, again, the community about fundraising because we have, since we received federal funds through the pandemic, have been greatly subsidizing the shelter through federal funds. And those federal funds mostly will be no longer available starting after this next year. So now I go into the fun part, is the design and looking at all of the pretty pictures that have been created so far for the shelter. As just a reminder, the shelter is near the East Side Madison College. It's right off of 51 on Bartillon. It is in a transit overlay district. And so the impact for us on design means that any buildings that are going into the city's, what we call the TOD, at a minimum have to be 2 stories. So right away, we had to think about what kind of services and spaces we wanted on the first floor, and then also on that second floor. Our mayor and therefore our city staff prioritize sustainability. So we thought a lot about that, of how we are moving forward with ensuring that this building is as green as possible. We did, after we purchased the Bartillon site, we have now since purchased the old McDonald's site that is in yellow on the screen and circled. That will not expand the footprint of the current shelter, but we wanted to buy it to make sure that we had the option on that site of the kind of the next steps of what we want near the shelter in the future. So we have purchased that, and it soon will be torn down. I will tell you, buying something from a McDonald's is also a very interesting process, as that site can never be another restaurant or food. There was lots of stipulations as we were buying it, but very interesting. And then another thing that we really pride ourselves in at the city is whenever we are doing a city project, we make sure that part of that budget is set aside for some type of art. Art and culture is something that is not just about building a building, it's thinking about the space and how it's going to be supported. So we are definitely thinking about that as we go through our design plans. Again, from the survey, hearing from people who will utilize the space, it was a lot about that privacy, storage, and making sure that we have that access to services on site so that there's offices and places that they can go to seek that case management and so forth. So through that feedback, you'll see as I go through the pictures of the floor plans, we started to create what we had kind of called sleeping pods. So again, trying to create smaller sleeping spaces so people don't feel that they're sleeping in a room of 200 people. And then in order to kind of bring down some of those costs of having to cater food in, we are supporting the development of a commercial kitchen. We think this is a great opportunity for Porchlight through their services to provide job training and opportunities on site as well. And then again, medical respite. So opportunities when people do need to quarantine or isolate, having opportunities to be away from other areas. So this is in general just footprint of the site. Bartillon is kind of over here, and then Highway 51. So we will have some guests and staff parking. We'll have an access drive. We'll have lots of bike parking. It's a requirement of the city of Madison whenever we're building anything that we have adequate parking for the bikes. There will be a new, what we call a multi-use public path. This is a collaboration that we have with our transit department, where there will be a new bike path connecting opportunities to get to the bus rapid transit site that's on East Washington over there. For the outside, we are looking at a darker building with some greenery on it. This would be the viewpoint from Bartillon if you are looking at the shelter. And then this would be kind of the back of the shelter if you were going down that multi-use path and overlooking the side of the shelter. Probably pretty small, but this is the first floor of what we are looking at. To the left is where people would come in. That is the guest intake. So they would check in with Porchlight staff, go through security. As they come in, they have access to some bathroom space on that first floor. And then to the, there's office space up on that first floor as well. Down on the bottom, that would be the quarantine and the medical opportunities, and we'll have a nurse's station in there. Then as you walk further in, you have the dining room space. For us to ensure that this is a purpose-built shelter, it was important for us to think about the shelter as used 24/7. Right now, our shelter is only an overnight shelter. They come in around 4:30. They need to leave by 8 a.m. Depending on the budget, and I showed you those very high numbers that are for overnight shelter only of about 2.8 million. We do not know if we'll be able to open the shelter right away as a 24/7 shelter. We may have to, just due to budget constraints, continue with just overnight. But in the design, we wanted to make sure we were thinking about those day resource spaces as we grow that opportunity to hopefully grow the operating budget. We do have a dorm room, so one of those sleeping pods on that first floor. This is for, and probably will be targeted to people with disabilities who it might be more comfortable for them and for safety reasons be on this first floor. And then we have, again, I mentioned a commercial kitchen to be used. The second floor is very heavily just going to be used for the sleeping pods. So we anticipate that we will have bunk beds in most of those sleeping areas. And so between the sleeping pods and access to bathrooms and showers and staff space, that is going to take up most of the second floor. We do have elevators for people to utilize those areas, and then we have stairs as well. So I mentioned the sustainability. I will not go through all of these, and I will say I'm not the sustainability expert, but I sat through a lot of meetings and learned some things about geothermal. So if anyone on this call wants to know more about the sustainability features, John Evans is my partner and co-lead to this project, and he loves talking about especially those geothermal fields and so forth. But we really pushed as much as we possibly could on the sustainability features. And this has actually given us an opportunity that we will be able to probably apply for some federal grant opportunities as we build these, as a lot of new initiatives have come out through the federal level for sustainability. So where we are right now is we have received the bids back from general contractors. So we kind of threw the designs out there and said, okay, who in our community would like to build this amazing project with us? The bids came back at the end of May. They are slightly over what we had anticipated and budgeted. So we have a resolution going to our Common Council now asking for just slightly about $2 million more. We do already have those funds in our budget. So we're hoping that they are going to allow us to kind of swap out some resources in order to continue moving forward with this project. And then once we get that approval, which will probably happen at the next Common Council meeting, the contract gets signed with the general contractor, and then the actual construction work begins. So I am now going to hand it off to Karla. And Karla, I will just move forward the screens for you as you talk.
That sounds wonderful. Thank you, Linette, very much. So I just wanted to start by kind of talking about Porchlight as a whole and the different programs that we offer, and then kind of land on the shelter. So we do 5 core programs to serve and work with homeless and low-income folks here in Dane County. Probably the largest thing we do is affordable housing. We have approximately 370 units of affordable housing. We own all the housing. We do the property management, the case management, and the maintenance. We have housing for families. We have about 28 units for families, 2, 3, and 4 bedrooms. We have quite a bit of housing for single men, and then we also have housing for single women. Folks, it's regular housing. They sign a lease. We have month-to-month leases, so that works well for our tenants, and they pay rent. We only have one program in which our tenants can move in without an income, and that's our Veterans Transitional Housing Program that's up there on the screen. We serve 24 veterans at a housing facility on Spring Street on campus. And the veterans can move in without an income, and then once the staff helps them to receive an income, then they pay 30%. So it's often kind of a misnomer that folks think, that people don't pay rent in our housing, but like I said, they do pay rent. In the most of our housing, all of our housing is very affordable, but the majority of it is 30% of their income. But some of it is a set rent at our big facility on Brook Street, where we have 100 units of single rooms above our administrative staff. Rent is approximately $325. So in Porchlight housing, tenants have to make twice the rent. So in order to, for as an example, in order to live at Brook Street, then you'd need to make, $650. So especially that location, we try to keep it very affordable for elderly folks and people on disability. And then the other slide here that's up, the day shelter for individuals with mental illness, that's our Safe Haven program. And then that's been on the east side for about 25 years. That is a day program for adult men and women who have serious and persistent mental illnesses. It's open every day from 9 in the morning until 6 p.m. We have meals and services. There's no cost to the residents. And then above the program, we have 14 permanent housing spots where folks can kind of graduate into and move into the housing program. But we have some specialized housing like our vet program, or we have a group home for folks who have mental health issues. But a lot of our housing is just regular housing for people who are low income and need an opportunity. We also have an eviction prevention program called DIGS, where we help families in the community with a small gift for back rent or utilities. Basically, the goal is to keep them housed. And so we serve approximately 700 households a year through that program. We also have an employment and job training program on the east side called Porchlight Products, and we train formerly homeless men and women. They have to have a disability. Most of them live in Porchlight housing, but they don't need to, and many have moved out and live in housing in the community. But we train them. We have a beautiful commercial kitchen that we built in 2017, and we train them how to make 12 products. We buy all of our produce from local farmers, and then we sell those products in local grocery stores and area restaurants. And so you can find out more information about that on our website. And then our men's shelter. Let's see, maybe the next slide. Do we get into services more? Yeah. So, Linette talked about services that are provided in case management services. Porchlight and the city feel very strongly at our men's shelter that we want to do more than just shelter people, right? Like everybody is homeless for a reason. And so our goal is to help them work on some of those issues, but with the ultimate goal of being permanent housing, right? If somebody wants to stay local, our goal is to help them to move into permanent housing in the community. This year is actually our 40th year of operating the men's shelter. And as Linette said, it started with 3 church basements for 35 years. And so with those limitations, we were unable to do more than truly just shelter people, right? The shelter started in Madison because 2 people froze to death on the streets of Madison, and faith communities got together and opened up a parsonage house next to a church and said, if you're homeless, go on in, and wondering if anybody would show up. Well, they sure did. And that eventually became Porchlight. We've at Grace Episcopal Church, we've, run the shelter ever since. But truly for 35 years, our goal was just nobody freezes to death, right? We're making sure you're safe at night, and out in the morning you go. Since the pandemic, I like to say there's like one good thing that came out of the pandemic, and that was kind of this huge spotlight that's been shown on our need locally for a purpose-built shelter. And so as Linette said, we're at our 3rd temporary location, our last temporary location. It is going very well there, and we will be fine being there for the next couple years. But as she said, it's basically just one large space. And so we do have 4 to 5 case managers on every night. A guest comes in. We do some health screenings. We have telehealth set up. We have a program with Nurse Disrupted and another nursing program. So if somebody has some physical health needs, they literally just sit on a kiosk, tap it, and a live nurse comes up, and they can sit there and chat and get some suggestions. Maybe it's something serious and the nurse will refer them to the hospital, but maybe it's just something that can be solved with a simple referral. We have several partners that come into our current site at Zaire Road, but we'll be able to expand upon that greatly once we moved into Bartillon, because we just have, like a few office spaces right now for our case management and for our partner agencies that come in. So I mentioned Nurse Disrupted and the telehealth. We also have Madison Street Medicine, who comes in once a week on Mondays, and they are volunteer doctors and nurses who meet on site, one-on-one with folks to help them with any physical health needs that they have. CABA Recovery Services also comes on site. They work with folks who want some help with their mental health or alcohol and drug issues, and they can do one-on-one services. They can do some groups. And so all of those services are in high demand. During pretty much starting in September up until about a month ago, we were averaging 300 guests a night. And so some guests come, they've had a long, busy day. Maybe they were working, maybe they were just walking about all day and just super tired. Some folks just come in and eat and shower and go to bed, and that's totally fine. But some folks come in and want to look for a job, want to look for housing, want to talk to somebody about their behavioral health needs or their healthcare needs. Another program that we work very closely with, another nonprofit, Catalyst for Change. They do the majority of the street outreach for the city and the county, and they've been doing that for several years. So they bring guests into our services that are maybe sleeping outside, kind of that warm handoff to, it's often difficult to jump straight from sleeping in your car, camper, woods, into permanent housing, right? So a connection to our shelter is a good first step. And then from there, maybe moving into Porchlight housing or housing in the community is the next step after that. But we need to get folks off of the streets and into the shelter in order to provide all of those services. We've been doing quite a bit of fundraising and grant writing to have funds to help our guests who are ready to move into housing with first month's rent and security deposit. I mean, as you know, the housing in this city is very expensive. And so, for one guest, it might be $1,000 to $1,300 a month just for security deposit, and the same for first month's rent. And so we're not able to use our shelter operation funds for those types of things. So we've been, as I said, grant writing for those things. So we do have a nice pool of funds right now. So if somebody needs an application fee or a security deposit, they can meet with our case manager and get connected to those types of services. So once we move to the permanent shelter, once that is built, part of the design, and Porchlight is very grateful, we've been able to be very hands-on in the design of this new shelter. We've made several spaces with our partners in mind, right? Like we talk to Nurse Disrupted, talk to Madison Street Outreach, like what do you need in your space, right? So they might need a hand washing station because they're doing healthcare. And so we will have lots of wonderful space for folks to come in and provide services to our guests who want to do that. We've met several times now with Madison College and received a very warm welcome of, how can we partner? And there were many great ideas from our beautiful new commercial kitchen that we'll have. Our goal is to have a kitchen manager who will hire guests to make the meals. It'll start out supper and breakfast, but eventually it'll be all 3 meals. And so there's opportunity to partner there, with your hair cutting program, with your dentist. Like we have all the people, right, who have lots of needs, but we love interns too. So we have, many opportunities for students to come on site and get firsthand
Karla?
experience with folks. Yeah, feel free.
We are at time right now for the presentation, so just want to let you finish up on that idea, and then we were going to turn it over we'll go 2 minutes of just Q&A, question and answer. But go ahead, finish the.
I am good. We're super excited about partnering with Madison College and other agencies. So no, Linette and I would love to take questions.
Just first of all, I'd just like to say I am also currently an intern. So hi, Karla. Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Mac. You had a question?
Okay, I've got a lot of questions, so we're gonna try and keep them short and sweet here. So you guys offer a lot of support, medical services, helping finding jobs and whatnot. One thing that I noticed, maybe I missed it, is their legal support for individuals that may have been arrested in possession of drugs or have gotten in some sort of trouble that way. Is that available through any services, or do you have partnerships with that?
Yeah, we have not offered that on site since we were in the churches, so pre-pandemic. We used to, yeah, Legal Action of Wisconsin used to come on site into the shelter once a week. So that would be another partnership that we would love to reset up. And also the veterans, the Veterans Outreach Program used to come once a week pre-pandemic and work with our homeless veterans. The Beacon is the county's day resource center, and they have Legal Action comes there and provides some legal services. So after folks are bused to our shelter at night, then during the day, they're bused back to the Beacon. So many of the services, our goal is just that we know what they are and we connect, whether that's during the day at the Beacon. Obviously, once we're 24/7, then we can provide all of those services on site.
Okay, perfect. We'll move on really quickly to Senator Juke, and then I think I have a question too. So Maggie, you ready?
Yeah. How are you, Karla? And I used to pass by the it's not the Wanna Park, but here that by the COVID you guys used to have a shelter here around this park on East Washington.
A
During the
shelter on-
COVID.
Um,
During
are
the
you-
COVID.
Are you talking about Madison Plaza, the previous hotel?
Not the hotel. It's by the Popeyes. You guys by the COVID, you guys used to have people over there. Was it part of your program?
No, if you're talking about the hotels, that
Oh.
was not part of Porchlight's program. So
It's not the
during
hotel. It was outside. People were camp
Oh,
outside.
so no, that was Rindell Park. And so Rindell Park was during the pandemic, we were told not to sweep encampments because individuals did not understand the impacts of if we were to sweep encampments. So the city allowed during the public health order temporary permissible encampments. And so that was a short period of time that we suspended the rules that allowed people to sleep overnight in city parks. And then we provided porta potties and dumpsters and so forth. We then, once the public health orders were lifted and it was no longer in a public emergency, we did shut down that opportunity. And instead, what the city did was we created the first ever urban campground. So you'll hear individuals talk about the Dairy Drive, where we created a campground within city boundaries and moved individuals from Rindell Park to that location. Some individuals ended up going into Porchlight Shelter. And then we also had a connection with the hotel across the street where some individuals moved into the hotel, where the hotel was only serving people experiencing homelessness, and we had support services on site.
Okay, thank
and
you
my
for
other
that
question.
history lesson.
My
I
other
think we have to
question.
move on to the next person. We're about to run out.
Can
So
I finish one more
Okay.
question?
Okay, make it quick though, please.
Yeah, and then the other
Thanks
thing
to
I want to
everyone.
know is like, how do you separate people that are mentally challenged, homeless, and the normal ones? Because I live close by to this one here by the store beside, and sometimes there is chaos and fights and stuff. So that's my second question.
Yeah, so we run this, big shelter over by the mall. It's all inside and there is no separation. As Linette said, it's just a big, huge building with 250 cots laid out. People are 6 feet apart and that's the only separation.
So there's no security, like when.
Sure. No, we have security on staff. Yep.
Okay.
We
Okay.
have a security vendor.
All right, thank you for answering these questions. Moving on to Stacy Brunner. I think that'll just be our last question.
My question
Stacy.
is,
Perfect.
hi, my question
Hi.
is, do you have anything in place for like women who have had crimes committed against them to keep them separate from other people that may trigger their PTSD or anything like that? Or if they have children, someplace where they can have their children with them?
Yep, sure. I'll answer this question. So in our overall sheltering structure in Dane County, we have a shelter for people who identify as male, of women's shelter, so people that identify as female, and then we have a family shelter. We also have days offers shelter space as well, and so that is for individuals experiencing domestic violence. And then Briar Patch operates a shelter for individuals under the age of 18. So these are all adult shelters. So right now, we do not allow couples to use our sheltering services together unless they have a minor child with them. And that is one of the reasons for all of the kind of question that you asked of how to keep people safely separated. The approach that we have is by creating these separate sheltering systems in order to make sure that there is that separation.
Well, thank
Okay,
you both
thank you.
so much. I apologize, Stacy. Thank you both so much, Linette and Karla, for speaking with us today. Kai will work with you. We'll get your contact information as well as a copy of your presentation, if that's all right, because we want to make sure that this is available to our senators to review in the future. And yes, thank you so much again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies, for coming.
I'll see you tomorrow, Karla. Okay, perfect. Okay, that was our first public comment. So that's kind of how it works. In the future, we'll just keep everyone to one question. Don't have time for follow-up when we're at the end. So that's how we're gonna have to run that because we ran up on time. So that's why we're gonna do it in the future, just so everyone's aware. But I think that was pretty fruitful and we learned a lot about how those services work. Obviously, there's more questions we could be asking, but time is only so much. So that's how that works. Okay, so moving on to the next item on our agenda, disclosures and recusals. So if anyone would like to disclose any partnerships, affiliations, associations, ownership, or anything regarding the business items up for discussion, speak now or forever hold your peace. This is just for the business discussion items or the items noted for discussion. Seeing none, we can move on. Reports of officers, advisors, and standing committees. Starting with the Executive Council and President's report. So let me open up our report. So Madison College 2024-2025 fiscal budget has been approved by the Madison College District Board, meaning that all student organization budgets, including our own for Student Senate, have passed. At the district board meeting, also former President Giovanni Michaud and I presented a 3-year plan to the board. Our current sitting senator, Mac Carstens, also transitioned from his role being the student voice to the district board and pass it on to Rhodes Zhang. So that transition will now be happening moving forward. And also I'll begin to upload previous meeting minutes and agendas to our SharePoint in appropriately named folder moving forward. Additionally, Nohai and I will be traveling to the National Association of Campus Activities, or NACA, for the Student Government Institute from June 25th to June 28th, where we'll learn about methods and strategies for how to increase engagement on campus through inclusive programming. Also, Executive Council will be deciding on a date for our first meeting next week. So stay tuned on the meeting dates. For this first meeting, it'll just be us, and then at future meetings, you can all come if you so choose. We'll make that date available to you all. Does anyone have any questions about what I've mentioned? Seeing no questions online or in person, we can move on. Administration and Finance Committee, VP Patel.
No report.
Thank you. Legislative Affairs Committee, VP Hashmi.
Currently no report.
Okay, perfect.
I am not in a quiet place right now, but I was just watching the lessons over the weekend. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for your updates. Team Development Committee, VP Salifu. Okay, thank you. Public Relations Committee, VP Magosha.
No report.
Thank you. Advisor Report, Advisor Khalil Kratel.
Thank you. Yeah, a couple of things, everybody. First and foremost, thank you all for being here tonight. I greatly appreciate that. And I greatly appreciate getting to talk to all of you during the one-on-one meetings that I've had with y'all. So as we continue forward, if you'd like to continue to meet with me, please just let me know. This is me just notifying you all that in the next week, I will be gone and out of the state. So any information that you may need as it relates to Senate, I will defer to Director Ellie Rome or to President Brito here, just because I will be away. Please continue to complete the Blackboard trainings. Today, lesson number 3 was due. We are auditing those, so please continue to get those completed. For any and all reports that we will be requesting here in the future, I will be sending you all a form that I have created through Wolfpack Connect that will allow you to send us what it is that you'd like to talk about in your report ahead of time. That way, for our individual that's part of our communications coordinator, they do not have to review the video recording of this consistently. We can have the basic of what is the conversation that is had to therefore be transparent and provide that information to the necessary folks as we are in open meeting. Please continue to look at SharePoint. Please continue to look ahead as we begin to talk about things because knowing that information ahead of time is beneficial. And then lastly, I've had a few people reach out to me, just questions about, hey, I feel like I'm going to be nervous about balancing being a student and being a part of Student Senate. If you or anybody else has any ideas for some just trainings in terms of what does it mean to be a student and a student leader, please reach out to me. If we have enough folks, we might make that something a little bit bigger. Maybe I'll work with VP Salifu on this, just looking at how do we prepare y'all, because it is a lot to feel as though you're going to be a student leader and a student on campus. But I will tell you right now, we can make it work. We'll make it beneficial. But please reach out if you do have those concerns, and we will definitely identify some trainings that can come through it there, both either in person or virtually, just a matter. Any questions for me? Seeing none, I yield.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, reports from special and select committee, Student Activities Board, President Brito. No, I will say that in the future, we'll be having, we'll be setting up the Student Activities Board meetings for the summer, in which VP Tell is starting to be invited end sessions, so we can get you affiliated with what the Student Activities Board is. So it's more of a new report, but otherwise there is no report to have from that one. Moving on to Textbook Affordability Committee, Senator Sierra Brenner. I do believe she's absent today. Student Parent Support Group, Senator Crowder, also absent. Did she tune in yet?
No.
No, okay. Moving on, Inclusion Belonging Coordinator Report, currently vacant. Reports from regional and metro campuses. Senator Stacy Brunner, are you able to join us? I did get your message. Can you hear us right now?
No report.
No report? Okay, thank you.
No report.
Perfect, no worries. Watertown campus, vacant. Portage, Senator Crowder, currently not here. Fort Atkinson campus, Senator Dirks.
No report.
Thank you. Goodman South, Senator Bissonette. Don't believe she's here either. Okay, absent. Moving on. College Assembly. Okay, so College Assembly right now is focused mainly on discussing the shared governance implementation group, which we'll be continuing to discuss our meetings where we discuss the future of shared governance on campus. If you're not familiar with what shared governance is, that'll come up in our next lesson, lesson number 4 for our students on a summer training. So at this time, currently, everyone does see the value of working collaboratively with students, staff, administration, as well as college level officials. But we'll need to figure out how to integrate that with our Vision 2030 strategic plan and any other plans that come forward in the future that Madison College wishes to implement. So really, it's just figuring out how are we going to work together with each other with our current version of shared governance and what we want to develop in the future with our new strategic plan. So currently, Senators Avila and Carson's are on that with me. Is there anything you would like to add that we discussed?
So at our last meeting, at our next meeting, we will begin reviewing and discussing which committees will be disbanded, merged, or continued as we familiarize ourselves with their current roles in the college.
And then Senator Avila, Angel, anything you want to add? Do you think is important or no? Okay, we'll leave it at that. Any questions from anyone? Not seeing any hand raises, so looks like we can move on. Moving on to Academic Council, currently vacant. Diversity and Community Relations Council, Senator Crowder, not here, so we'll move on. Facilities Planning and Investment Council, currently vacant. Finance Council, President Brito. Quick updates. Currently one of the co-chairs was recently in here. That's Vice President of Administration and Finance, Sylvia Ramirez, Dr. Sylvia Ramirez, I should say. She just left, but continuing our update, we are continuing our discussion with the 100% tuition refund drop deadline extension. As it currently stands, all schools within the Wisconsin Technical College system are subject to state administrative code, which says that classes must be dropped before the first day of class begins in order to receive 100% refund. You'll only get 80% refund after classes have already began. This is not in line with the UW system policies, so we're working with within our system and institution to identify additional issues that occur from this policy, and also how we can move forward to improve the situation for students. Our next meeting is Friday, June 21st at 9 a.m. If anyone's interested, reach out to me and you can join if you'd like. Also, that'd be one of the shared governance councils you can appoint or be appointed to. Is there any questions? Seeing none, looks like we can move on. Information Technology Council, Senator Avila, anything with their tech?
No report.
Yep, okay, I just want to add on that there was a question that came up in college assembly about the IT council. They're just asking about ways in which, how can they, or just coming up with an issues question about how can they effectively and fiscally conservatively, or just more like budget consciously, come up with ways to update their technology services for the needs of students in the future. So really it's just kind of getting their mission statement in line. That was recently approved and sent back to the IT council to figure out how they're going to do that. So that will be coming in the future. So I gave you your next talking points for the next meeting there, Angel. Okay, any questions? Seeing none, we can move on. Institutional Effectiveness Council currently vacant. Student Affairs Council currently vacant. Unfinished business, no unfinished business. New business, new senator swearing in for Stevie Brockman, VP Hashmi. There will be no swearing in. Just a note from Advisor Karla, any announcement to make now or?
Yep, so through our bylaws and constitution, as well as the understanding that Senator Stevie Brockman was never sworn in or completed any necessary paperwork, we will be moving forward and vacating that position from Senator Brockman. Therefore, we will now have an open senator position for a general senator, as well as the continued open position for the Watertown Regional Campus Senator. This is something that we are looking to move forward with and will begin in September with looking to fill those positions per our constitution and bylaws. Senator Dirks, I see you have a question.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, so with the general senator position open and the Watertown one, can any current senator apply for that? Or are we going to have to look at students who aren't already in Senate to fill those positions?
Yeah, so technically someone could apply to the Watertown regional Senate seat if they have an affiliation with it. So like Lando, you're not currently on the Fort Atkinson campus, but you're from Lake Mills. So like that's your association. Like you're in the district. You're like from the district in which like the Fort Atkinson campus is. So that's why you're the Fort Atkinson Regional Campus Senator. So that's how that one works. But for general senators, anyone could apply. But yeah, we would need someone to have a connection to the Watertown campus in order to be a senator. So that's kind of like the guarantee that we have for them, that we're having their interest represented in student senate. That's why we have those regional senator seats. Does that make sense? Or do I need to explain a little more?
No, that makes sense. I might actually know someone that I took a class with at Watertown last semester that might be interested. I'd have to ask him though, but that's always something to think about, you know.
Yep, go ahead and reach out to them, but then also please provide me that information, like name and such, because that way I can work on the back end to ensure if this is a plausible fit, that everything is covered. Because there are some stipulations that we have to be cognizant of for at-large positions that are open during the year. But providing me that name will assist us in that process. So thank you.
Yep, and additionally, they would have to attend 3 meetings in order to be eligible to be sworn in and voted in the Senate. Yes.
Okay, I'll let them know as soon as I can here.
Yep,
yeah,
you've got 2 weeks before the next meeting, so you've got some time.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, any other questions related to? Okay, sorry, I interrupted. Any other questions related to this? Seeing none, we can move on. Overview of attendance sheet. Would you mind pulling that up?
That's the Excel sheet, correct?
That's the Excel sheet, not the one I sent you in the email. It's actually in the office hours logs in the SharePoint. So if you go and
Pull that up right now.
perfect. Actually, maybe I should pull that up so I can drive. So I'm gonna pull that up right now.
Okay.
I think it just makes more sense
Not a problem.
for me to navigate rather than tell you where to go.
Understood.
Thank you. Okay, we're sharing our screen. Right here. Nope, not there. Oh wait, yes. So y'all are seeing this now? Did it go?
Yes.
That's not the screen I wanted to share. Sorry. Okay, I think I got it now. Perfect. So this is an example of what the office hours log will look like. We will be opening this up for the next week, starting on Monday. So on Monday, June 17th is when we'll be opening the office hours log. So currently senators are expected to do 2 hours worth of work, and vice presidents and executive level members of Senate are expected to do 4 hours, but this is like a point system. So how it works is that members like me and all the executive vice presidents, we have up to 10 points that we can get because we have a much larger burden of responsibilities, and y'all have up to 5 points. What happens when you get to those 5 points or 10 points respectively? You will be automatically disqualified from Senate, and there is an appeal process, but hopefully we don't get to that. But if it happens, it happens, and now we're going over the rules. So that's kind of how it works. Currently, everyone has 0 points because we just are introducing the office hours log now. Here's a little bit more rules on it. So office hours must be logged in 30-minute increments. You can't just do 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, and have that all add up over time. They need to be something substantial. This is written into the bylaws, so that's how that works. Like I mentioned, senators must log 2 hours per week, VPs log 4 hours per week. It is prorated, so let's say that you do 2 hours as a vice president, but you are supposed to do 4. Well, you only get 0.5 points for that. So it's not quite as punishing as it may seem. So do what you can. Sometimes you have to make the sacrifice. That's why there's a certain number of points you can have. Really, it's just to ensure people are keeping up with their duties as a senator. So that's why that exists. Your absences will count towards committees, executive, general assembly meetings. So if you're absent, you will get a point. So miss too many of those meetings, that will also lead to a quick expulsion from the Senate. So you do need to attend the meetings. And then, like I mentioned, the 5 and 10 point limits exist there. So you can always view the sheet yourself and see what the proratings will look like. So let's do a quick training here. So let's say, here I am, President Brito. So we have a fun little thing here. Let's say I did office hours today. So we'll just enter in the date, 6/13. We can move on there. And let's say I was working at 9 a.m. Let's say it was at 10 a.m. We worked until then. So we entered that in, time in. You did hours, time out. Then in or out. I was at home today. So there I am. We didn't have any sort of executive council meeting, so we're excused there. And General Assembly, I did come here on time. So what will happen here is you just write a quick description of what it is you did. And what did I do today? Updated resolutions, wrote reports, GA reports, and consulted.
I'm sorry. Are you sharing your screen? I don't know if maybe I'm the only one that can't see it.
Oh my God, can everyone see this right now on SharePoint?
I mean, it's moving real slow. It's thinking real hard. I do see what you've entered, yes.
Okay, Melina, can you see that right now?
I can't, but I guess maybe my connection's really crappy. It's totally fine. I'll catch up later.
Okay, well, you can always consult the recording online if you'd like to know more about it. Also, I think if you just shift over and go away from the square boxes, like it'll go to like the main screen and you should be able to see it, but unfortunately, sorry, I don't know what else to do about it. But anyways, moving
yeah,
on.
don't
You'll
worry.
you see it? All right, perfect.
Totally.
Perfect. Okay, so that's an example. And let's say that I wasn't able to do any more hours. So that would actually give me a point. The reason why it's not showing up is because I have a complex function entered in. Oh no, is everything showing up here? I have a complex, there it is. I have a complex function entered in to here that helps decide whether or not you get points. So we're not going to go over how it works. You just need to know what happens. So right now it says 0 points. That's because it'll calculate at setup to calculate at the end of the week and let people know how much points it is. It's not going to say you have points if it's not time up. So let's just imagine that this were for 5/16. So I'm just going to enter 5/16/2024. So I actually would have earned 0.750 points for being excused from executive council, for showing up to General Assembly, for only doing 1 hour worth of work. So it's not going to count. It's not going to make it look like you have points if it's not time yet. It doesn't tabulate it until it's ready. So I'll just enter in the time again, oh, wait, when did I put that? 6/6? There we go. Yeah, so it automatically calculates this stuff. Wait, June, I think it's June 3rd that we want to go for. No, wait, today's the 13th? Yes. Okay, perfect. So yeah, so it's not going to calculate points if you didn't actually technically earn them yet. So there is a function for that. But this is an Excel class. This is just telling you that this is how you'll enter in points for yourself. So, you know, if Hassan were interested, he could enter in hours for today. So he probably spent some hours today reviewing all the meeting materials. So he'll say at like, I don't know, 2:00 p.m. to all the way to 4:30 p.m. He did that, reviewed meeting materials. That'll be a lot of your work. And then there's that. Also, you can use your hours for meeting senators to do that, because I do have a project for meeting senators to have on there, but that'll come, we'll discuss that at a later date. But anyways, this is what we're introducing next week. So I'll have all the stuff set up, and then you can tell I'll be taking over that. Any questions? First one I see is from Senator Garces.
Maybe there's a miscommunication here, but
Yes.
I thought I spoke with Advisor Cole and I thought we weren't going to start tracking until July 1.
Thought we were gonna hold off and wait.
Oh, until
Because
July.
he's out
Until
of
July,
town
because
next
I'll be out. So there's no like hold of that, and then by the time I come back for like questions and such, we're already at the end of June. But since we have a couple more, at least one more training session that they need to go through with the Constitution and bylaws to review that policy effectively.
Okay, I'm fine with that. The point of doing this was just to get people to go to the next item that we're going to discuss. So I just previewed all of this. So don't forget it. It's still important. We're not implementing it right now, but I guess we're doing it after our next meeting.
I just want to make sure that there's clarity and I'm not being told two different things by two different people.
I'm
and I
fine
get in
with
trouble.
moving forward.
But what I will say, and this was a discussion between President Brito and I, is that you shouldn't be checking this out for the first time when you start to log them. Take the time in the next couple of weeks. If you've done work, log it in here. We're not going to be, holding anybody to an extent that you could achieve a point, being that you have not completed your hours. However, with everything, please do not make the first time you're logging into this is the first time that something is due to us. Please make sure it's done effectively ahead of time, but we will have that barrier to allow that buffer. But again, accountability and responsibility falls upon you all for ensuring that you're logging your hours effectively and in a timely manner. So good habits start now. I would advise start logging what you can, just to have a feel of knowing what's going on. And if you're a returner, refresh yourself. If you're new, figure it out, ask questions. You can't break anything that we cannot fix.
Yep, and this is just an example of what it used to look like. So here's our previous president, some other members, how they entered their hours. So some vacancies, stuff like that. I don't know, some people entered hours and got their 2.2 hours per week. Some people didn't, and that's just how it goes. So they'll earn points, you'll see. So, oh, that's a vacancy. But yeah, that's kind of how it would accrue. And then it would all come to the point totals here. So any questions now, or will we just review it again once you're back, it sounds like. Sound good? Okay. Well, there's yourself with that. I think it'll be good. Okay, moving on. Do you have the spreadsheet that I sent you?
Yes. Seconds, pull that out.
Oh, did I stop sharing? Okay, yes. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Hand raise from Senator Dirks. What's up, man?
I just thought of a question relating to the office hours. So, I know you mentioned that you wanted all of us to meet with the other senators, but during the summer before we kick things off in the fall. Would
Yes.
those meetings count towards the office hours?
Oh, definitely. That's why I structured it this way. Have a discussion about the office hours and have like a little tracking system for where you meet. Obviously you don't need to use this tracking system. I just think it's fun, just to see if you can meet everyone. So obviously it's just a way to have that out there. So yep, so you
Awesome.
perfectly led into my next questions. Yes, those count as office hours. So meet with someone. So for your general senators, you have 2 weeks to meet, to do 2 hours worth. So you can meet with 4 people for 30 minutes, or you could take it slow throughout the summer. But I would like for everyone to individually meet with each other over time. And you'll see that I've been able to meet with a number of people, just partially because that's the role of the president. But I created this nifty little spreadsheet here so that everyone can see, like this is who you have to meet with, and you should get to know each other. Have these like little one-on-one meetings, have these discussions, then track it on here. So the cool thing about this is try putting a date in the future, Cole. Like maybe put it on Angels, put like 6/26 or something random that's in the future. Yep.
Oh, did I lose everybody? Sorry,
Oh,
1 second.
no worries. Okay, well, anyways, this spreadsheet tracks stuff. So it'll say if you haven't met with someone, if you have, it's kind of nice to just put it on there. And I'd like to see at the end be like, hey, look, everyone met with each other. So, oh, wait, do it underneath. So I haven't figured out Excel fully, but if it links, if you do underneath if you do the bottom half.
Oh, the bottom.
Yeah, because it links that way. So you see, yep, on that side. So
Oh,
pick
right
any cell there
Okay.
works. It'll
You said
link to
put
the
date,
top.
date?
Yes, they are linked, but only from the bottom. I didn't know how to make it linked from the top. So yeah, so that's today. It turns up green, but if you do a future date, yep, it turns up yellow because it's scheduled. It hasn't happened yet, but it will. That's really the only thing that's interesting about that. Otherwise, a dash if you haven't scheduled anything yet. And there's no penalty if you don't meet with anyone, but I think it's a nice thing to do. And I think it's an easy way to spend office hours. Be like, yo, like I haven't met you yet. What's your deal? What do you care about? And and here's me, and here's what I care about. Very easy way to get to know each other. So meet with each other for like 20, 30 minutes and then count it as office hours and knock it off the list here. And I'd like to see everyone fill this entire sheet out. So I've obviously got some people. What?
Sorry, where is this available again?
It's not yet. I'm trying to see if I can make it like link both ways, but it'll come out on Monday. So yes, once you start having those meetings. So just save your dates when you do meet with people. I already filled out some stuff that people I've met with. Obviously I have some work to do too, but it'd be cool if we all could do this. Any questions? No questions? Okay. Well, hopefully you're all as excited as me to meet with you all. So we'll make that happen. Okay, moving on. So resolution 2, Juneteenth. Senator Crowder is not here currently. We do have our co-sponsors, which being me and Cameron, Senator Wilkin. So we could just continue on with it. Juneteenth is coming up. Yes.
Overall review of resolutions.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought they kind of, I think this just can get updated. What I wanted to do, I think I did want to do that. Okay, let's pull up the resolution anyways as a discussion about how to talk about resolutions. Thank you for that. Point of order.
Point of order.
Yes. No. We're all learning here. So I clearly just skipped the agenda. So yeah, this is an example of a resolution. So I just wanted to go through about like the formatting of resolutions and why we do it. So number one, our goal of Student Senate, like our mission statement is to like support the students. Like we're here so we can represent students and student interests and ensure that they have a better time on campus and that, we actually have money associated with that. Because as Student Senate, we have a budget, so do other student organizations. We manage the student activities fee fund alongside 9 other organizations, and we make up the student activities board. Overall, the power is kind of centralized in Senate, as well as the district board and the president have some say over how we spend our money as well. but generally it is kind of in the power of the students with oversight from other organizations that also make use of the funds. So that's kind of how that works. And, the financial tie to what it is that we do. Why are we doing these resolutions? To show support within both, like within our own organization with what we believe, and also externally facing to the student body to show what it is that we are doing. Why have I been such a proponent for these different resolutions on like Pride Month, Black History Month, Juneteenth, and Asian American, etc.? Well, that's because I think it's a nice way to connect with our identity-based clubs. That's why a number of these have been coming through, and a number more have been planned for the future, and why we're having these discussions. As you'll learn, as you have learned already, the difference between a resolution and a bill is that resolutions are kind of just making a formal statement that this is what we believe in, and this is how we're gonna, attain these beliefs and go after our goals, like with a step-by-step analysis of what it is we plan to do. It's just kind of putting some teeth behind what we say we're gonna do. And a bill makes actual changes to our current bylaws. We haven't had any bills yet, but once we get our executive council meetings going and then our appointments going, we'll start to have meetings with the rules committee, and the rules committee is largely responsible for making legislation happen. Obviously, anyone can come forward with a bill. The way it works is that someone needs to come forward to introduce a bill, and needs to have two, needs to be co-sponsored by two people. So this bill or this resolution does meet those criterias. So that's kind of how that works. And we'll be having a bill discussion at some point in the future, I'm sure. So there's that. There's whereas clauses, as you learned in your Senate training, that each whereas clause needs to be like one sentence long. We need to have some sort of tie for what the necessity or what the purpose is behind the motion that the resolution is making. You'll see there that we also have an official stamp that'll be signed by, as well as from Student Senate, it'll be signed by me and VP Hashmi as well. You'll see our logo in the background, and you'll see some of the formatting on there. On section 2, actions, commitments, it's not exactly like, it's not necessarily needs to be the format of it, but that is one like type of formatting that we have. There's also a section you could have for definitions. This one doesn't have it, so you don't have anything that I felt needed that, or that Annette really felt needed that. Obviously, both Cameron and I looked at this. So scroll down, please. You'll see that there's also references, and I think that's something that we hadn't had before, but I think it's just good to have references for where information is coming from. So I just wanted to make sure that all of our information that's like fact-based is like coming from somewhere. So like attributing things where we can, unless it's like a commonly known fact. But I feel like hopefully all of us together can figure out what is a commonly known fact or what needs that. So there's that. And then the conclusion is just a formality saying, restating what it is that we hope to achieve. Scroll down, please. And we're going down to the voting record. This is just, in our bylaws dictates that we must do a vote by voice roll call in order to pass any resolution or bill, basically any official pieces of legislation within Senate. So this just has all of our names there, and any vacancies are noted, and then a total amount. And then if the totals for yes or approve goes over the amount for no, then that's kind of where it's at. And then there's also abstain. So abstain is just kind of like if you don't feel very comfortable with it, but you're not very opposed, you can kind of state your abstention, that you don't want to have your opinion like noted on the record. This stuff is public, and it's like any student can access this if they ask us, and I'll also be putting it on our website. So that's kind of like marking where you stand on certain issues. So you can abstain if you want, but it's kind of there to put it there. So yes, if you know everything in the bill, you've read it, you understood what everyone's talking about, vote yes, and you generally believe in it. No, if there's like a point of opposition that you're like, I don't really believe this is going to benefit the students. What is the point of this? And then abstention, it's like, well, I don't necessarily agree with it, but I don't see any reason why we can't do it. So while I don't personally support it, I see no reason, there's no rules reason why we can't do it. And that's typically how I think about it. I don't think I voted no for any resolution in the future, but again, we also work through it. So sometimes resolutions don't pass the first time, or maybe it's just the first introduction. So those are the kinds of things that we do for it. So we did a real quick introduction of what a resolution's for and how you vote on it and like what the structure is. Does anyone have any questions about that? Yes, question from Senator Carson.
2 questions, actually. First off, were we supposed to do a training on resolutions and bills? Because it's not on the blackboard, so I'm.
Was
a
it not
little
on Blackboard lesson 3?
No, it is lesson 3 on
That's
the
lesson 3.
Blackboard.
I thought that was responsibilities.
That's number 2, I believe.
Yeah, that's number 2.
Let me look real quick. But
Maybe I'm ahead because I've already done it, and so it doesn't
Because-
pop up for me.
Because lesson 2 is overview of student senate,
Yes,
which includes the history,
yes,
but there was nothing about bills and resolutions in it.
No, but
except for
lesson-
what we passed.
yes.
And lesson 3 was responsibilities of a center, just discussing
let me look.
what you do. It doesn't say anything about the anatomy of a bill. So
When I access it, I've already done all of them, so it pops up for me differently, so maybe.
Maybe we should slow down a little bit. I get it, you want to move through and we don't have a lot going on or we have limited time during the summer, but I'm a new senator. I'm a little lost and confused right now.
I don't think the answer is slowing down. Our responsibility is to pass bills and resolutions, and it's for us to become familiar with it.
Senator Carson's is correct. It is lesson number 4.
4, okay.
So, okay, well, we can let that rest for now. My other question is there a way we can make this more legible? I feel like the seal makes it difficult to read
It does.
some of the stuff, so
I agree with that.
I'm not old, but I'm not young. My eyes aren't 20/20, so is there a way that we can make the seal a little bit lighter?
Yes, I think an idea for that. So I think I had that same issue. So one thing that I did is I created 2 versions in the past, I think for the LGBT bill or resolution. And what I did is just delete the seal. And then you just put it back in afterwards. So we have like a draft bill and then we can just add the formalities afterwards. I think that works. You fine with that, Cole?
There should be no issue with
Yeah,
that.
there's no issue with that unless it's.
View and legibility is the thing, that
Yes.
what we are focusing on is the content. Yeah, that shouldn't be a problem. I want to make one point. Senator Carson, you talked about this in our last meeting, and this is something that I think that just in general, we begin more and as we get through the next lesson for resolutions, is one thing we've talked about is action points. So making sure that we're taking actionable steps to do so. One thing I wanted to highlight, because this does showcase that in this last portion, which again is hard to read, but student senate members will volunteer at the Stepping Into Juneteenth event on June 15th. Just something to know, as we talked about that and was talked in our last bill, that one thing to work with your resolutions is what are your action points? What are the steps that you're actively going to be taking? What collaborations are out there? Again, just something that we want to have there, as President Brito has said extensively, and I agree with it, that our collaboration is the focal point of making sure we're amplifying the student voice. So making sure that you have those action steps of what is it that we actually are trying to support and what could actually take place that shows that support. So just things I wanted to highlight because you were doing well and going over it with it. I just want to make sure we hit that point as well.
Sure, yes.
Was there an invite or information sent out about stepping into?
No, there was from Annette, so she did send it out last meeting. I'll be sending it out again afterwards. This was gonna be the pretty much the introduction of it, so it kind of came at a lesser time. So yeah, there have been some like notices of it, but nothing like exactly formal. This will be that. But just to address your other point, so the reason why I'm very comfortable bringing forward resolutions and bills is because I think resolutions a lot more so than bills, because bills kind of require an understanding of what the bylaws are going to be. But I think everyone has an opinion. As long as you read what's on this document, you should know what it says. I'm not asking anyone to write their own resolution right now. If someone wants to, go for it. Like talk to me, we'll get this up there. But, like Annette is a veteran. Me and Cameron have been in here before, and so is Maggie too, as being a former vice president of legislative affairs. But we're not asking you to write them yourself. We are asking you to just read through it and see, is this something you generally agree with? And do you think this is for students or not? Like, that's why people don't send it.
No, I 100% agree with you. We are supposed to be doing things. If we were all just sitting around here chit-chatting and picking our noses, it'd be a waste of our time and money. But this, you lost me there for a minute, and I was very confused about what you were talking about with this bill, where we were going forward, and understanding, like I said, the anatomy of it. So I got confused there, and I was just looking for greater understanding, and if that is coming up in next week's lesson, I think that will clarify a lot of things, but that moved a little fast for me. Right
Yeah,
there. And I just wanted to voice that,
Yeah.
in case there's anybody else out there that's feeling a little lost as well.
Yeah, so let me just immediately respond. It's gonna feel like that, and it won't get any better if we don't continually showcase this. So it's not going to, I just can't promise you're gonna understand it from one meeting. I'm not like a teacher or anything like that, so maybe there's better ways for me to demonstrate how this works, but through multiple exposures to what resolutions are, what bills do, through multiple discussions about it, you'll get to understand it. I think it's better for it to come forward when we have a lot of time to discuss these types of things, rather than later when, we're halfway through semester and you're like, oh, well, we never did it. Well, now we're doing it. And yeah, so if anything, this just highlights how much more time we need to spend on like what is a resolution and what is it we're doing. So maybe like a formal presentation would be nice for that. So maybe something like a PowerPoint type thing, which I can look into for next time and with your help before you leave. So, yeah. Anyone else have questions? Not seeing hand raises. Okay, yes. Well, this is the structure. This is like the bread and butter of Senate, why resolutions pass, and how we get things done to make use of our time and money. So that's kind of the structure of what things will be happening throughout the semester. Anyone can write one as long as they have two people co-sponsoring it. I think we're not at the point yet where people want to write them, but as long as there's some veterans in here, I think we can keep bringing them forward and you can let them know about what it is. Also, we don't have to pass them the first time. So I think one thing that was suggested by our advisor was just read it today. And I don't think it's terrible if we pass it the next time, especially when Annette's here. So I think what we'll do is just read through it. And traditionally what we've done is just read through it together, kind of like just reading it out loud. So I think we should just do that. Just read it exactly from the start so we can go through every line so everyone's familiar with all the points there. So Cameron, do you want to read it, Senator Wilkins, or should I?
How about you?
Okay, that works for me. I'm opening up here, and if you could just follow along with me, Cole. Sure. Thank you. Opening up new business. So we'll just read it today. We can wait for Annette for next time. Okay, so we'll start at the top. And I think what I'm going to do now, since I have a copy on my computer, I'll just delete the watermark so that we can actually all read it. Having trouble deleting the watermark.
Well, you want me to begin reading and then if you get.
Are you able to delete it?
I am not, no.
I've done it before. Okay, well, it's bad for dark mode. Here's what I'll do. So I'll just save as, download PDF, because you can read it on its PDF, but Microsoft Word is not great for that. So it's much better here if you can see. Yeah. Okay, let me share my screen because I think it'll be easier for everyone to see. That's in PDF version. It's much like, yeah, so it doesn't show up great. So this is what it really looks like when you print it out, like on the screen here. Oh, see, even on my screen, it looks much lighter than that. Well, it's much more legible now, right?
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I agree. That's much easier to read than what I'm looking at.
Yeah, Microsoft Word does not do great with that. So thanks for that point. We'll fix that in the future, but this is just so everyone can follow along. So you'll see up here, there's a passed failed section here. So if it passes, we'll check that box. If it fails, we'll check that one and we can bring it forward until it either passes or no one wants to bring it up again. We are the 63rd Senate. So that's why that's up there. This is resolution number 2 up for discussion in new business. That's listed again here. And it's just a quick, title of what this is about. This is about Juneteenth. You'll see here that resolved by student senates of Madison Area Technical College that the following article is proposed. If you didn't know, our technical name is Madison Area Technical College. We go by Madison College, but our legal name is that. It says resolved because this is a resolution. So you'll learn some of this stuff in the next lesson. My bad for again jumping ahead. I have access to a lot more of it than you did because I'm not exactly following along. So my bad for that. Anyways, Student Senate hereby proclaims June 19th. So this is like a summary of motion. And here you'll see these are formalities in the Senate of Madison Area Technical College. This is the date it was presented, Thursday, June 13th, 2024. And then it says this legislation was brought for consideration. The General Assembly, some things will come by individual senators, other things will come by the the Rules Committee, things will come from the Finance Committee, things can come from anywhere technically, but it's just listing that. And here's listing the two co-sponsoring people on the resolution. There's big letters there saying resolution. This is off center, but I'll fix that later for the lines. Anyways, formal motion, Student Senate will recognize June 19th, 2024 as Juneteenth and will work in partnership with the Black Student Union and African Student Association Club to support Black and African students on Madison College campuses. Primary reasoning, whereas historical relevance for almost 250 years, slavery has persisted throughout the United States of America as a legal means of exploitation, oppression, and racism against African descendants. Abolishing slavery on January 1st, 1863, President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation to abolish the practice of slavery within the United States. However, news of this executive action did not reach the last enslaved African Americans in Galveston, Texas, until June 19th, 1865, nearly 2.5 years after Lincoln's declaration, which marks the significance of the state and underscores the indomitable spirit and struggle for freedom. Federal recognition. In June 2021, Juneteenth has been recognized as a legal federal holiday under the Juneteenth National Independence Day Act, proposed by the 117th United States Congress and signed by President Joseph R. Biden Jr. State recognition, Juneteenth is formally recognized and celebrated in the United States, and Wisconsin became the 32nd state to formally recognize Juneteenth in the 2009. Governor Jim Doyle signed Senator Cogg's Senate Bill 170 into law, and on June 19, 2020, the Juneteenth flag was raised over the Wisconsin State Capitol building for the first time in state history. Acknowledging racial disparities through the formal institution of slavery was made illegal, its legacy continues to pervade our country's culture and institutions, resulting in deep institutionalized racial disparities, including access to wealth, education, health, employment, voting rights, and justice. Racial justice and equity. Due to the advocacy, activism, and sacrifices of Black Americans, our country has made significant, though incomplete, progress in the movement towards racial equality and equity, and Madison College and Student Senate continues to empower a more just and equitable future for our student body and campus experience. Striving for equity, the Senate promotes inclusivity and creates equitable opportunities, allowing all students to voice their needs and concerns. Resolution justification. The passage of this resolution is a sign of progress towards equity, inclusion, and belonging across all Madison College campuses, and Student Senate acknowledges the need to promote these values in all aspects and how we interact with students, faculty, staff, and the wider community. This last statement here is generally standard boilerplate, but you change it for how, depending on what the resolution or bill is. So this one says, we, the Student Senate, for the reasons stated above, and then you just list whatever reasons pertain to this bill. For this particular one, this resolution, support this resolution to honor and celebrate Black and African students on our Madison College campuses. This one's really important. The action and commitments, like what are we actually going to do from this resolution? So this particular one, Student Senate will commit to the following actions in support of Juneteenth. Student Senate resolves to support Black and African students, faculty, staff, and community members by advancing and protecting basic rights that should be accessible to all students, addressing discriminatory legislation and policies against LGBT. Well, see, there's another reason why this shouldn't pass today. So perfect fix there. Within administrative bodies and shared governance channels of communications on Madison College campuses, ensuring safety, equity, inclusion, accessibility, and belonging for Black and African students on campus through building social safety nets and community within Madison College, and participating on the Wisconsin Technical College System Student Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, Belonging Committee. Student Senate will work in partnership with clubs and organizations like BSU, ASAC, or Intercultural Exchange to honor a commitment towards inclusion and belonging initiatives. And Student Senate members will volunteer at Stepping into Juneteenth event on June 15, 2024. References, so any references that need to be made to just kind of legitimize the facts that we put into these resolutions, they'll be listed here. This resolution references passages from proclamations written by the Office of the Governor of the State of Wisconsin. In conclusion, this is standard boilerplate being enacted by the Student Senate of Madison College Assembled that Student Senate will recognize June 19th, 2024 as Juneteenth, and will work in partnership with Black Student Union and African Student Association Club to support Black and African students on all Madison College campuses. Here's the voting record that we mentioned before. So the senator names are there. We can mark in the record whether it says aye or nay or abstain. And you'll see listed all your names there. We'll update this for all the current senators that are there, and then the totals be there. And then if it passes, it'd be signed by me and Vice President Hashmi. So this is like a big like overview of what a resolution is. Obviously, there's a lot more to writing it, and that'll take a lot more like in-person types training. But this is kind of what it is. We're not going to vote on it today. I think people's opinions have been made clear enough. But moreover, Senator Crowder's just not here. I think it's a bigger reason not to do it. We can just do it next time and then just show up at Juneteenth. So the invitation is open. Nohaya, if you want to talk about that for intercultural exchange.
Yes, I think it is next week for the Juneteenth, next Saturday.
Oh, it's this Saturday.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And it is organized by the Black Student Union, and it is around like good mindset. The work is about like 30 minutes. So just like to promote the Juneteenth, and everybody is inviting. So they sent like a link to open, like people who want to do like some volunteering stuff. You are more than welcome to come in. They have some t-shirts that they want to give to the volunteering people. So just show up, and it is about 2 hours. And I think they also give like some collation and some photo to the volunteering people. So feel free to come in, and we can share you the link if you want to sign in for that. And it's about like 2 to 3 hours, and that starts at 10 a.m. in the morning.
Yep, that's correct. I am having trouble signing into Wolfpack right now. Are you able to, do you think you can get that link into the chat right now?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, sorry, I just can't get into Wolfpack at the moment. Okay, well, do you have questions about this resolution? I feel like we had a lot more experience this time. Do people feel better about resolutions after going through like an entire one and just reading it out?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. So maybe we should make that standard practice now. Maybe we should just read every single one out loud. Does that sound like something that?
If we're just having discussion. Yes, I think that's just smart because let's be honest, some people won't read it. So we need to have everybody be on the same page before we start allowing just running things without there being everybody understanding the language.
No, I think that's good for people to do that. Hand raised from Senator Brenner.
Yeah, I agree. I think we should have it read at, each resolution, because even if a senator reads it, not all senators can understand the language, jargon, whatever you want to call it. So they might get confused by things that are said in the resolution, and then might just vote yes or no by kind of interpreting it the way they think it should be done. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Yeah, I didn't consider that. I think last year we just got so comfortable with it that we just didn't. But yeah, no, I guess I have to keep remembering that we're all newer here and that my understanding of it becomes a lot easier than your understandings of it. So yes, thanks for continually checking me on that. So I think it is a good practice to do that. So I think moving forward, we can do that. And being the chair of the meetings and, either me or VP Hashmi has the power to do that. So we'll just require it. No motion needed unless you really want to make one. So you can do that if you want. But I'm fine with just having that be a standard rule. And maybe later on, VP Hashmi can make it a rule. Maybe it'd be good for, future students to have that as a rule that it's required for all of it to be read out loud. So maybe that will be our first bill that we can work on once we get that set up. So I think that's actually worthwhile. So thank you both for bringing that up because I don't know, as a person that's been here before, to me, it makes a lot of sense. But yeah, I could see where that'd be helpful. Okay, we'll work on that in the future. Anyone else have any commentary? Was this educational for you overall? Did people learn? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, cool. No one wants to share any commentary? Otherwise, we can move on. Oh, yep, Senator Jacobson.
Yeah, I did find this very educational. I just had one quick question though. Does waiting on passing this resolution or just generally voting on this resolution mean that we as Madison College won't be able to recognize Juneteenth until after the actual Juneteenth of 2024?
It does, but it's like retroactive. The more important thing is that we show up to the event on Saturday. So if you show up at 10 o'clock on Saturday, and the details are in there. So if you show up at 10 o'clock at the Fountain of Life Church at 655 by Federal Road, it's like, yes, the letter of the law is not really in alignment with the date, but the spirit of the law is us showing up and actually being at the event. I think that's what matters more. So yeah, it is not great, but I think it's just the growing pains of Senate. So yeah, and I think the bigger thing is that Annette just isn't here. So I don't know, maybe we should move forward with it, but it's not the worst thing in the world as long as we show up. And I think that's like the better thing. I don't know, what other people think? Yes.
Okay. We are being close on time, just so you know.
Yep, I'm aware, but this is the last thing. Yep.
So, Senator Jacobson, to your point, I think this is just for the general benefit to everybody in the future, that the resolutions that we pass are just to show on the face that Student Senate is throwing the resolution to support the endeavors or the activities or what it is that is going on that we're looking to identify. It is not a reflection of the entirety of Madison College as a whole, though. So as we're, looking into this of like, hey, what does this mean? Student Senate still openly supports and will support Juneteenth. That will not change. These resolutions are there to kind of have that formal process that can be seen, because resolutions have to be, can be redone, have to be redone year after year because they run for that one term that is the school year per se, or during that time that we operate. So will the resolution not be present? Yes. However, that does not impact or dictate anything as it relates to our support for it. The resolutions are really just there to say, hey, as a formal process, we have done this, but that doesn't delineate from the fact of what it is that we do support, and that is the overall benefit for the students. So I just wanted to clarify that so that we're all on the same page with that.
Yeah, and it also builds on next year. So like this is our first time doing this, but next year, like we'll have people that are more aware of how this process works, and perhaps we can get things together, quicker because this now exists. So while it might not be like done in time for this particular session, next year it could be done more on time, and we can still just show up even if the resolution isn't passed. There's nothing barring us from doing that. So thanks for bringing that point up. Question?
Okay, definitely. As long as we're still able to show our support by being there, that's really all I care about. So
yeah.
Is there any way we can just make some of these things just bills?
So the reason you wouldn't do that, well, you could, but like, I'm not sure where in the bylaws we would do it. So bills are meant to change our bylaws, the way we operate that. So if we put something in the bylaws saying that we'll review it, because we can't force future sessions to pass things. We can say, the most we could do is say like, here is like a library that you must review. I think it's the most we could do that would be like, okay, I don't know. I think I'd have to look at a lot of things. I don't think it's written necessarily in our constitution, but I know that our session can't force things in the future to happen. So they could choose not to vote on it if they wanted to. It's really up to the next people.
You and I talk. Let's talk afterwards, into the future, and we can talk and see where this kind of goes, because we could refer to Ellie and Sean as well, just to kind of see where that could fall. We want to look at something like that.
But we can have, there's methods to make things more sustainable in the future, and that's
I guess that's what I'm thinking about, like keep the language vague, but still we'll talk after.
Yeah.
This is a bigger conversation than 5 minutes allows.
Okay, well, it's so funny. We just got a message from Annette, but so she's alive and well. Maybe we'll see her on Saturday. Seems like we're all resolved here. Yeah, I feel like we all had our chance to say, so let's move on to non-business housekeeping. No non-business housekeeping. Announcements. Our next meeting will be on Thursday, June 27th in room C2402, this one right here at 4:30 p.m. Also available online for hybrid option. We do have a contact info sheet. I think I need to get that up so we all have access to that. So that'll be my thing to do next week. And then complete lesson 4 in the Blackboard for Senate bylaws and Constitution, where Unfortunately, because I was reviewing it, I think I just got in my head that you guys all knew how resolutions and bills work, but this should be the lesson where they learn it, correct? Okay, yep. So I have access to all of them, so it just kind of jumbles for me. So my bad. I think we had a pretty good discussion about the Blackboard course. I don't know if there's anything quick you wanted to run through, Cole, afterwards, or?
I'll briefly.
Very
There's two
briefly.
things
We'll
I
make
wanna
it
get
very
to,
quick.
We'll be set.
Okay, well, anyways, looking for a motion of adjournment.
Motion.
Motion made by Senator Carson, second by Senator, I'm sorry, Vice President Salifu. My apologies. Anyways, move over municipal approval. If no one opposes, this motion passes. Voting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Meeting adjourned at 6:28 p.m. Okay, please stick around. Quick mention from Cole here.
Yep.
And this no longer needs to be recorded.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Can you